You're tuned to the leading edge with Scent, the pulse of cricket podcast. I'm Scent. Every week we bring you the stories, insights, and moments that drive this beautiful game. So hit the subscribe button and let's get straight into it. Welcome to the leading edge with Scent at Roundy Podcast Studios. So it's another week, it's another episode about cricket because the last time we actually gave you like episodes like 3 days within another, like back to back. And that's what we plan to do this year. We plan to make sure that we are more consistent because, again, there's a lot of cricket happening. There is a lot of cricket happening. Right now, we have provincial cricket for men, women, Division 1, Division 2. We also have the Proteas, the man and the woman. There's club cricket that is happening. So this past Sunday, I was actually watching a club cricket match all the way in Stellenbosch. I won't tell you who I was watching, but yes, the team I was supporting lost. It is what it is. And obviously, the school cricket. Cricket season in South Africa is probably close to ending, but there's still a lot of cricket this year. And today, we're mainly concentrating on something everybody's raving about, and that's the World Cup. So, at the time of recording, South Africa is already qualified for the Super 8s. And what does that mean for South Africa? It just means, if you remember from the last episode, I had said South Africa will reach the finals if everything happens right. And that just means that my prediction is still on course. And let's talk about it. Let's literally talk about that prediction. Now, some will say the greatest match in this World Cup was probably South Africa versus Afghanistan. And some will say Zimbabwe beating Australia. I'm also happy about that. And some might say the surprising team of the tournament so far is probably West Indies. And the most predictable match, which is the biggest match, was India versus Pakistan. As I had said in the last episode, India will win the match. And I just felt like the reason Pakistan didn't really want to play the match, I'm still saying it again, they did not want to get beat by India yet again. But anyways, we are hosting a Pakistan at the moment in the country, and the Pakistani woman. South Africa is playing a T20 series and will also host an ODI series. There, South Africa is leading 2-0. So by the time of recording, by the time we publish this, the third match would have played. So let's get into it. The greatest match of all time, South Africa versus Afghanistan. This is an interesting one because it brings about other interesting aspects in it. There's the match, and then there's the things outside the match. One of the more famous, I would say, journalists, who's South African, also works for one of the biggest publications, cricket publications online. She said something specific about Rashid Khan in the sense of she felt that Rashid, because before I even enter the match, I just need to speak about South Africa, Afghanistan. Why was this match so significant and interesting for me? So she spoke about the fact that Rashid Khan hasn't really said anything about women's rights in cricket on the basis of Afghanistan not having a team. And Rashid Khan was also asked this question in one of the press conferences, and I liked his response, regardless of the criticisms that some people might criticize him. I liked his response in the sense of, I'm paraphrasing it. He was like, ideally, the laws of the ICC, a team must have a women's team. And that's what he would also like. But it's not in their hands in terms of the players. It's in the hands of the Afghanistan Cricket Board and the ICC. They will sort it out. They do all those things. And it's the truth in the sense of, if he comes out and says something against his government, what will that do to him? And what will that do probably to his family, including his teammates? I'm just putting it like that. So he's a player. That's all he is. He's not a politician. He's I've never heard Rashid Khan saying he's a advocate for human rights. But one thing that the journalist was saying was that Henry Alonga and not Grant Flower, the other Flower brother, they were armbands back in 2003 when South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Kenya hosted the World Cup, when the World Cup was in Africa, the last time the World Cup was in Africa. They were armbands to protest against what was happening in Zimbabwe. And I looked at that, I'm like, do these two really are the same? In the sense of Henry Alonga, Rashid Khan, because I'm not going to talk about Andy Flower. I'm going to talk about Henry Alonga and I'm going to talk about Orlando Rashid Khan. Rashid Khan is arguably the greatest player from Afghanistan. Henry Alonga, because again, the reason why I'm talking about Henry Alonga over Andy Flower is because Henry Alonga protesting that day was more impactful to making that a success than Andy Flower, even though Andy Flower was the world-class player. Henry Alonga is black. He's a black African from Zimbabwe, as opposed to Andy Flower, who's a white Zimbabwean. I could say he's a white South African as well. I think he was born here. But either way, Henry Alonga was not the best bowler in the Zimbabwe squad, and he was not the second best, and he was not the third best. In South Africa at the time, we had Umakhaya Ntini. Umakhaya Ntini was also a black African bowler from Africa, and you could say Umakhaya Ntini was world class. He currently has 392 test wickets, averages 27, 29. So, yeah, Henry Alonga, if you look at his stats, they're nowhere near that. So, who gets to lose more? Rashid Khan, Henry Alonga. And Henry Alonga will end up also moving to, what do you call this thing, in England. So, he didn't actually have to go live in Zimbabwe for much longer. So it's an interesting comparison in that sense because you look at it years later as well. Zimbabwe cricket at the time was on the rise. It was strong. Yes, you would say because it had white players, but it was strong. Either way, you had your Alistair Campbells, both of the Grant brothers. It has your Heath Streak. I can go on. Strang, Guy Whittle, again, Henry Alonga. But Henry Alonga, you could leave him out of that squad. So him protesting wasn't really that of a bigger factor compared to if Rashid Khan were to protest against his own government. That's just my take. So I don't think the comparison between Henry Alonga protesting and the potential of Rashid Khan protesting is fair, I would say. But I think the longer the Afghanistan players improve, I think the longer they improve, I think the longer Afghanistan becomes stronger. I think the National Cricket Union will be at a point where they probably have to start doing something at some point. They have to start doing something at some point. So this match had that because previously South Africans did protest, some did protest, asking questions about should South Africa play against Afghanistan? I'm talking about the last World Cup. This time around, that talk wasn't that big. I think the only person that brought that again is the other journalist that I'm talking about. I don't want to name any names. We'll keep it neutral. So this match starts, right? South Africa bats first. We score 187. Yeah. And guess what happens? Afghanistan bats. They look good. Afghanistan actually looked good in that match. Thank you to Gubaz, if I'm saying your name properly. And the thing about him was that previous year he was in the SA20. This year he wasn't in the SA20. He was in the Pretoria Capital squad. He was okay. I felt like he did okay under Pretoria Capitals, but Pretoria Capitals dropped him. And a person could say, well, Pretoria Capitals did well for dropping him because they reached the final without him. But he also showed that maybe he should not have been one of the overseas players that should have been dropped, because he took South Africa to the edge. He literally took South Africa to the edge. But the most fascinating thing about that match, or one off, was KG's over. KG was having an off day. The last over, KG bowled 2 no balls. I see people on social media cussing KG out. He shouldn't be playing T20. He's not a 220 player and all of that stuff. And I'm thinking, KG is the leader of this bowling attack. KG gives this bowling attack that thing. But KG did something specific on a day that he was having an off day. He didn't give up. And that's the one thing that I actually did admire, that I do feel a lot of cricket coaches should actually start teaching kids, the kids that they coach. Do not give up even when you are not having a bad day, when you're having a bad day. In the sense of that run out, because he threw himself to make sure that run out actually happens. He didn't just give up. He actually threw himself. And guess what happened? We went to the super over. Super over. Lungisani Ngidi is the one that's going to bowl it. Now, bear in mind, Lungisani Ngidi at this point is one of the best bowlers in the World Cup. He goes for 17 runs. A lot. I could hear commentators kind of giving up on South Africa. They were not sure what they will do, which is okay. And then, yes, we're in the super over now. Luckily, David Miller steps up. Now, I need to speak about David Miller again. He's one of the guys that get criticized a lot by South Africans, where he doesn't step up when he needs to step up, which is interesting because David Miller had an awesome SA20 as well for Ilanduk, for Power Royals. He was a guy that did step up at the right time. And yeah, man, he did his thing in the SA20. So now, David Miller ensures that South Africa scores the needed runs. We score 17. I think at the time he's batting with Previs. No, Previs started and he got out. Previs started and he got out. I think he hit a 6 and then he was dismissed. And then the other person he was with there was Tristan Stubbs. So, yeah. Now, also bear in mind, Stubbs has had a good World Cup so far, but he wasn't part of the original team. His situation had to go through Cricket South Africa board in the sense of Stubbs was not part of the regional side. Ryan Rickleton was not part of the original side. Due to injuries to Donovan Ferreira, due to injury to Tony Dozozi, who's yet to recover in time in his injury, those 2 players actually replaced him. And then it was said Reza Hendricks was supposed to take over, to play. And honestly speaking, Reza Hendricks would not have been a bad replacement in the sense of he's had an okay SA20. But Stubbs was the one that was chosen. Okay, either way, let me go back to the match. South Africa scores 17. Right? Good. But now we go to another super over. So Afghanistan has to choose a new bowler. This is their specialist T20 bowler, but unfortunately, he was having a bad day. And good thing for South Africa, in the second super over, we score, was it 23 runs? No, 22 runs. And now they need 23 runs. No, we scored 23 runs and they need 24 runs, actually. And guess who comes in back? Yes, Gubaz. South Africa brings in Maharaj. KG, I don't think he wanted to take to bowl. He didn't want to hold a ball. Interestingly enough, we didn't actually go with Marco Jansen as well. And I probably get why, in the sense of Marco Jansen might bowl balls that are quick, nice to face. He's not like Kulungi, where he's going to change up and bowl change ups, slow balls, and all that other stuff. And with Maharaj, he's going to bowl spin, so they really have to attack him. And Maharaj gets a wicket in his first ball. Nabil Nabi gets dismissed. Good thing for South Africa, right? Right? Nah. This is when Gubaz came in. He hit a 6. He hit another 6. And then there were 12 runs to win, with 2 balls left. And then there was another 6. They needed 6 runs to win. But you know what happened? A wide happens. A wide happens. So now, Afghanistan no longer needed a 6. They needed just 4 runs to take us to a third super over. But Maharaj, the captain of Pretoria Capitals, the guy who's won multi-domestic tournaments, the guy who likes to bowl long spells in Test cricket. So, in terms of having nerves of steel, you can trust Maharaj there. You can literally trust Maharaj there. And in that last ball, South Africa actually got a wicket. Yep. Gubaz was caught at point. And that was it. South Africa won the greatest T20 match in history. And some will say, yes, it should not have been because South Africa should beat Afghanistan. But the problem is Afghanistan reached the semifinals of the last World Cup. Yes, we beat them there, but they did reach the semifinals. So this is a very strong Afghanistan squad. It may be raw, but it's a very strong team. So now South Africa plays that match. So South Africa now needed probably one more match to win and to make it to the Super 8. And arguably, most people would say New Zealand is probably South Africa's strongest side in this group. But South Africa actually brushed aside New Zealand in the next match. They literally brushed them aside. Interestingly enough, Marco Jansen went for 40 runs. But Marco Jansen got 4 wickets. KG redeemed himself. He didn't get a wicket, but he did redeem himself because he only went for 27 runs. So he went for like 6 point something runs and over, which was valuable in the context of that specific match. Lungisa Ngidi got his 8th wicket of the match. And interestingly enough, something I just need to say about this World Cup is that the highest wicket taker is a Capetonian. Yeah. Shadley van Schalkwyk, who obviously plays for United States of America right now. He made a good move for himself a few years ago when quite a few of South Africans players went to the United States. And interestingly enough, Dane Pete decided to come back and play Test cricket because Shukri called him. That was when a lot of South African players were playing in the SA20 and we needed players to play, interestingly enough, against New Zealand. We lost that Test series 2-0, but it is what it is. Dane Pete will go on and play again, but yeah, well, I need to say something about Dane Pete. Congratulations for winning Ilando, what do you call this thing? The CSA 4-day series. with the Knights in Division 2. So back to this match. So Shadley is currently the leading wicket taker. And then you have Lungisani Ngidi with 8 wickets. And then you have Blessing from Zimbabwe. All right. And then I think Jason Holder comes in. And I think another USA bowler comes in. But they all have 7 wickets along with Marco Jansen and Evans from Zimbabwe. So, point what I'm trying to say is that African bowlers, more specifically Southern African bowlers, are there amongst the leading wicket takers in the tournament. And then in the match against New Zealand, right, the captain, Aiden Markram, finally showed himself and he scored 86 runs, not out. He anchored the innings. And I think Aiden, again, for me, one thing I'm loving about this World Cup specifically is that I'm watching quite a lot of, maybe it's because I'm coaching more now compared to last year, but I'm liking more where I'm seeing players doing things where, as a coach, especially a youth coach, you would like your players to emulate or watch, in the sense of the way that Aiden, who anchors the innings, but was able to dominate against New Zealand. That was great. And then the other batters were batting around him. Everyone scored like 20, 21, 21, 24. And that was enough for South Africa. Maybe South Africa could have scored more runs, but that was enough. That was actually enough to restrict New Zealand. They reached the target with 17 balls left. So that was a significant win for South Africa. And now they are in the Super 8s. They have a match against UAE, and you expect South Africa to win that match. I do not know if they will play their bench. When I say their bench, it's not much on the bench, but maybe a match for Nortje, maybe a match for Kwena, maybe a match for Jason Smith. Well, we'll see how that goes. But Shukri is your typical coach, like in the sense of old school. Don't mess with the winning formula. Let the guys play. The only time you change things up is when probably someone is injured. So I doubt Jason Smith will get a ball, but I do think Nortje might get a ball, might play this one. Or, depending on the conditions, probably Landoga might also play. George Linder. Contributions Zaka, George Linder, and contributions of Orlando Coben, Bosch, they cannot be brushed aside. Those guys have done well, especially Bosch, bowling those last overs as well in the last match and the first match against Canada. Yes, we were expected to win against Canada, but anything can happen, man, in this World Cup. Anything can happen in this World Cup, and there's a lot of South Africans in this. Like, Italy has a South African and they have a win. Namibia has a South African, but they haven't had a win. And then you have New Zealand also has a South African in Glenn Phillips. Yes, Glenn Phillips is actually South African or born here. We claim, man, in Africa. So, yeah, there was a team that I enjoyed watching. I think it was Ireland. Yes, it was Ireland. They also have a South African. It was Ireland in the sense of against Oman, I think, they were struggling. And then the interim captain, Tucker, the way that he anchored those specific innings as well with George Denley, it was it was those blueprints that you want to teach youngsters to actually say, when a team is in trouble, do not panic, but find a way to rebuild the innings while still scoring. So the concept of intent. So it's, yes, that I enjoyed that match as well. England has been in trouble, but kudos for them for beating Scotland. Australia finds themselves in an interesting position where they have to beat Sri Lanka. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But again, Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe in their group, I do feel everything is within their hands. If they let Australia through, it will be their own fault. So yeah, I don't know how you feel about the World Cup, but I have utterly enjoyed it so far. Maybe because I'm a South African, because our batters are firing, our bowlers are firing, our fielding is firing. We are not choking yet. No, we could have choked in that. We could have actually choked in that super over. But as I said, that run out by KG, I think for me was the most significant part about that, in the sense of he could have literally given up. And we will blame KG for those 2 no balls. Hey, it happens, man. But he came back. He went from 0 to a hero real quick. And then Maharaj became a hero. Stubbs became a hero. Miller became a hero. And I think this team has a potential, again, of actually winning this World Cup. They have the potential. Will they? I don't know. A lot of teams are good. India is good. India has that ruthlessness in them. Australia tends to come back in the end. West Indies is looking good. I do not want the 99 World Cup to happen where maybe South Africa is faced with Zimbabwe and we lose the match. So, as I said, I'm enjoying the World Cup and I'm literally rumbling. So, in the end, I still say, if South Africa is going to win this World Cup, it all depends on Aiden Markram, who has a significantly high strike rate right now, 178, which is interesting because it's bigger than Quinton de Kock. Quinton de Kock is at 130. He is yet to step up. Brevis is yet to step up. That's how scary South Africa is. As I said, we've been spoilt a lot. Congratulations to South Africa for winning the T20 series again against Pakistan. We'll talk about that one when that series ends. Congratulations again to Western Province, women's side, for winning that, continuing their winning streak, in the T20 series. And the 4-day competition, we'll see a final. I think it's the Lions playing against the Dolphins. So we'll talk about that the next time. So yeah, cricket in South Africa is huge, is big. Please keep on watching, kids, on Saturdays and Sundays, especially the women's cricket, club cricket. Please support them on Sundays. Pick a team. Hopefully your team has a team and go watch them. So I'm out. Keep subscribing. Leading Edge with Scent. Thanks for tuning in to the Leading Edge with Scent, the Pulse of Cricket podcast, proudly produced by Roundly Podcast Studio in partnership to bring you the stories and the voices of cricket. Until next time, stay on the leading edge of the game.